a very good morning from Dover Port. I've just drove down from Liverpool, left about 7 o'clock I think. Been in Dover now for about an hour and a half, and my ferry's due to depart in an hour's time, so it's 02:30 in the morning. And I actually think our ferry's just starting to load now, which is great. Just going to go through a few hints and tips of a bit of beginner's guide to a self-guided battlefield tour to the Western Front. That's what I'm doing on this particular trip. I've drove in Europe for many years, passed my test when I was 19 and was basically driving in Europe straight away. So, yeah, excuse me, just have to wipe my nose a bit. So, the few things I'll go through is preparation for driving your car in Europe, what you need, etc. I assume that it's a UK car, you're a UK driver, based on the majority of the people that watch these videos will be UK based. Give you a few hints and tips, a few things that you need to carry, a few things that aren't legal requirements to carry, but I recommend you carrying them anyway, just to help you out. And a few tips about driving on the opposite side of the road if you've never done it before. Apologies to those people watching the video that are seasoned travellers in regards to driving on the continent, and you might find this a little bit boring. However, there will be a lot of people that are a little bit anxious about doing it or would like to do it, but they haven't really got the confidence to do it because they're not exactly sure what they need to do. So yes, it is daunting for those of you that want to do it for the first time, but it's not as difficult as what you might think. Okay, so I'll try and help you as best I can. So let's talk about your preparation then. So first thing you need to do is make sure your car is fully good to go to travel. All right, so everything you would do if you were going on a long journey in the UK, checking your tyres, your fluids, your oil, making sure all that's good to go, making sure you've got a full tank of diesel, petrol or electric for our eco warriors out there, just like you would in the UK. Driving abroad's a little bit different. You need a few extra things. Okay, so again, some of them are recommended, some of them are law. When I first started driving in Europe, a lot of these things were legal. They're now not a legal requirement, but I just carry them anyway because it's what I'm used to and it's good practice. So, high-vis jacket for every single person traveling in your car. Okay, so if you've got a 5-seater car and you've got 5 people, you need 5 high-vis jackets. I'm on my own today, so I only need one, regardless of how many seats I have in my car. But yeah, however how many passengers, you need that many high-vis jackets. Warning triangle. You need a warning triangle for your vehicle. If you're towing a trailer, caravan, etc., you also need one for that. All right. What else do we need? First aid kit. Bulb set. Okay. Again, not a legal requirement, but really recommend carrying them because you can get a fine off the authorities and international police forces if you can't change a bulb on the side of the road if it's run out. What else do we need? We need breathalyzer kits that look like this. They're not a legal requirement, but I definitely recommend you carrying them. Okay, some things that you need. Of course, British passport or whatever nationality passport you have. Your GHIC insurance card. Your UK driver's license. Your V5C. And your proof of travel insurance. Right, I'm about to board the boat, so I will catch you in a minute. So I've just boarded the boat. Really simple to board the boat. Just follow the marshal's instructions. When you book your ferry, or you'll shuttle, the process is pretty much the same. You book it online, whatever ferry company that you want to use, or the shuttle, and then you get to the check-in booth. If it's a shuttle train, it's automated with a touchscreen. If it's a ferry, you will have a manned booth. But obviously you've put all your details in of who's travelling on part of your booking, your registration vehicle, etc. You will get something like this, and it will tell you time and date of travel, how many people, and this 210 is what lane you're going to be in for your boarding process. So you go to that lane, it's really easily signposted, and you wait there until the marshals tell you what to do next. So yeah, really simple. Nothing to be worried about at all. Marshals will tell you where to go. They've parked you up on the boat now. If you're on a ferry, you leave the car deck, you head upstairs, and you can go and enjoy the refreshments, the bar, whatever it is that you want to do. Obviously you can't have a drink if you're driving, unless it's an overnight boat. And yeah, that's it. If you're traveling on a shuttle, you park where the marshals tell you to park, and you sit and wait in your car. You're only on a train for 35 minutes. You're on the boat for 80. So yeah, that's as simple as it is. When you get off on the other side, which I'll try and show you some stuff tomorrow, get off the other side, just remember that you're driving on the opposite side of the road. A few things I forgot to mention before. You also need a UK sticker to identify that your vehicle is a UK registered vehicle. If you have the UK identifier on your number plate, that is fine for the majority of countries, but there is a couple that you still need to have the magnet or the sticker. If you have the OGB ones, they're no longer legal, so you need to make sure you get a UK one. If your headlights cannot be adjusted by your sort of settings on your car to drive on the opposite side of the road, you need to buy something called Euro lights, which are little stickers that go on and just adjust the way your beams face, so you don't blind drivers when you're driving down the motorway in France or Belgium or wherever you are you're travelling. That's pretty much it. I hope you haven't missed anything. If I have, please put it in the comments. Help me out and help everybody else out as well. But I think I've covered everything in regards to your car. Sat nav wise, or use your Google Maps, use your sat nav, whatever that works for you. Just remember that everything's in kilometres on the other side of the road, not miles, and you can't have things on like speed camera awareness. You have to have that all turned off, so just bear that in mind. All right, that's me. I'm gonna go up onto the boat, have a little sleep, and I will see you tomorrow. Right then, team, so that's us off the boat. Been off the boat for about 25-30 minutes by the time we actually got down to our car, got let off the boat. As I've explained before, much easier in the likes of Calais, because you don't have any passport control or anything to do, because you've already done it on the other side. And when we go back to England, they do it all on the French side, so it'll be the same when we get to England. It'll be straight off the boat and onto the motorway. We're just on our way to our first site, and as you might be able to hear on the window screen, it's absolutely hammering it down. Just like the good old British summer, but we're actually on our way to Belgium. So we're not quite at the Belgian border just yet. We will be there very shortly. About half an hour's drive to our first site. I won't tell you where that is just yet, because I want to do a nice video when we get there. I got absolutely no sleep on the boat, by the way. I went to the quiet lounge where there's lovely reclining chairs. I was on the P&O Liberté ferry, which is one of the new ferries. Lovely ferry, lovely and clean. And they have a lounge there called a quiet lounge. Lovely reclining seats, very, very comfortable. Perfect for getting your head down. Well, the quiet lounge wasn't quite so quiet, and the reason behind that was some guy was snoring so loud that there must have been about 3 people out of 60 who actually managed to fall asleep. Everybody was complaining about him to me, you know, to the people that they were travelling with. Bloody hell, that guy's loud, bloody hell, that guy's loud. Obviously, I had no one to complain to because I was on my own. So yeah, so I've had no sleep. But thankfully, I'm feeling good. I'm not feeling tired at all. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how long we go until we start to flag. But if it's while we're driving, we'll of course pull ourselves over in a service area and have a little snooze, like you know, like you do if that's how you feel. So yeah, nice quiet road. We're on the we're on the way to Ypres in Belgium, or where we're going is actually the outskirts of Ypres. So we're just on the A25. No tolls on this particular route from Calais to where we're going. If you were going up towards the Somme, which we will be going to later on this week, then you would go a slightly different way and you would be on the toll roads, unless you selected on your sat nav to not use the toll roads. But I would definitely recommend using them. They're nice and quiet. Excuse me. They're nice and quiet, and they do save you quite a bit of a journey. Don't get me wrong, if you've got spare time, the French routiers, which are the old traditional A roads, if you like, as we would call them in the UK, they're really, really nice scenic roads through little villages, etc. Some of the old school truck drivers like to use them, but they're just longer, as you can imagine. So I always tend to use the toll, especially when I'm with kids, because as you can imagine, it's Dad, how long is it till we're there, Dad? So yeah, but this particular route doesn't have any tolls on it. Can't remember if I mentioned it earlier in the vlog. Obviously, one of the downsides to being in a right-hand drive car in a right-hand lane country is when you have no passenger. When you have no passenger, obviously the toll booth is on that side of the car. So yeah, you have to climb over if you haven't got a passenger, which can be a little bit of a pain. If you've got a passenger, obviously they just do the little bit of work for you. So yeah, I won't blabber on too long because this is going to be quite a long vlog anyway. And I shall see you when we get to our next location. It'll be a couple of seconds for you. It's going to be about half an hour for me. See you later. So we're just a couple of kilometres up the road, the main road I was talking to you about. We've come along now a couple of kilometres from where we visited Ypres, and we're at another very, very famous place on the Western Front. I've got to be quite careful how I vlog here at the moment because there is a a British school here on a tour with their guide. I just want to ensure that I don't obviously get the kids in the vlog, etc., without obviously consent and all that sort of stuff, so we don't want any issues there. So if we can't get the footage we require, don't worry, I've got plenty of time, I'll come back. So right now we're at the area known as Essex Farm Cemetery. Okay, and Essex Farm Cemetery is famous for a couple of different reasons. And the first reason is what we're going to talk about now. This was the site where Lieutenant John McCrae wrote his famous poem In Flanders Fields. Okay. The site I'm stood at right now is where the old dressing station, so we talked about dressing stations at our last site. Here there's some remains of the dressing stations, so they're not exactly how they were. They've been sort of concreted originally. I believe they would have been like sandbags and stuff, but this is exactly where they were, and they've been sort of just made so that they can stand the test of time, essentially. Don't know how good the lighting will be, but essentially. And as it says here, Project John McCrae, or J McCrae, yeah, which is exactly what we're going to talk about. So most people who know anything about the First World War, about remembrance, will know the poem In Flanders Fields. This little inscription here, or plaque, is the poem, and I believe this is essentially a copy of how he wrote it. So that writing, that handwriting, is an actual copy of his actual poem when he wrote it himself. This bit here is just so it's a little bit easier to read, and then this bit here is just a little bit of information about Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. So, in Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the lark still bravely singing fly. Scars head amid, the guns below, we are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and we're loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from the failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if you break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. Such a touching poem, one that actually still gets me quite emotional. Every time I hear it, every time I read it, you know, thousands of graves here because it was a dressing station. So again, as we explained before, you know, soldiers come here when they're at their sort of worst, you know, to get treatment, etc. And as you can see on here, obviously this was sandbags, but it's been like concreted to make it last the test of time, and the same with this bit here. But unfortunately, they've had to actually fully concrete the bays themselves, where the casualties would have been treated. So that's in Flanders Fields at Essex Farm, by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. I'm going to walk over to a headstone now of what is one of the most touching headstones, in my opinion, on the Western Front. And again, those of you that have been to these parts before may know exactly where I'm going. But just on the way here, this is something that I just noticed a second ago, that I've not seen before. Two interesting points actually while we're still here. First one being, obviously, Private Underwood of the Staffordshire Regiment died on the 27th of July 1917. So his headstone is being temporarily removed by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, so to be repaired. So it may have been damaged for whatever reason. The stone might have deteriorated. So they'll either repair or replace that headstone and then bring it back to place it in its rightful place. And that's just a temporary thing, so people can still understand who lies here. And then right next door to him, which I didn't know was here, was the headstone of T. Barrett, Victoria Cross, who died on the 27th of July 1917, age 22. So yeah, so lots and lots of important headstones. Every headstone's important, you know, every headstone is a story. I'll explain this headstone to you as well. This is a Jewish headstone, as you can see by this Star of David, and very, very popular thing for people to do, Jewish headstones. You may have seen it around like the Anne Frank sort of memorials, etc. Stones on top of the headstones. So if you ever see stones on top of a headstone, you can pretty much guarantee there'll be a connection to the Jewish community. So let's take you to what I was originally going to take you to before I've seen them couple of interesting things. And that's the thing, if I see something interesting that I've not really come across before, I will absolutely stop and have a quick chat about it. So this headstone we're going to come to now is the headstone of one of the youngest soldiers to die on the Western Front. There is some who believe there's younger soldiers, but this one is one of the most famous young soldiers to have died. It's the only one that I'm aware of exactly where his headstone is, and I'll tell you a little bit about Joe Strudwick, or Valentine Joe Strudwick. So here he is, Valentine Joe Strudwick of the Rifle Brigade, died on the 14th of January 1916, age 15 years. Wow. What really puts that into perspective is my eldest daughter Mia, is 11. You know, and I'm worried at the moment, you know, and apprehensive about her starting high school. You know, this guy died for his country at 15 years of age. It's absolutely unbelievable. So yeah, one of the literal boy soldiers of the Great War. And if I quickly just show you this area here, you can see, if you look at this area, the grass to this area is different. And that is based on what I understand it to be, is that is because Joe Strudwick gets so many visitors. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission were unable to continue to maintain the grass to a standard that was acceptable and presentable to, you know, represent these men that have gave everything for their nation. So they replaced it with artificial turf so it lasts longer, because the sheer amount of footfall that goes on it. That's what I believe to be the case. Again, if there's anyone out there that knows a different story or situation and would like to share it, please smash it in the comments, drop me a message, and I'll be sure to correct myself with your information. But that's how I believe it to be, and that's what I was told when I first visited here many years ago. Yeah, so if you are enjoying the video and you're still here with us now, please don't forget to do the supporting stuff of subscribing, liking, sharing, comments, whatever it might be. It really will help us grow, and I want to be able to have the opportunity to do more and more of this. At the moment, it's costing me money to be here, and that's not a problem at all, because it's my passion, and I would pay and pay and pay, and I have done for many years, and I will continue to do so. But if we can get the channel to grow to a point where we're generating a little bit more money, that will enable us to then be able to do more, maybe go further afield, maybe do it more often. So yeah, if you can, please do. I know I know people will enjoy the channel, I know people won't enjoy the channel, and that's okay. But any sort of feedback is absolutely welcome. Sorry, just quickly, one of the things I forgot to mention about Joe Strudwick, as I mentioned before, there's a school group here, and one of the reasons why lots of guides, bring school groups here is because of this young lad. It's a very popular cemetery anyway, because of the stuff with John McCrae, because of where it's located, and many tours come here, but especially those with school groups, because it really brings the reality of it home to the pupils, that when they see someone aged, very close to them. And as you can see here, they look to me like they might be school groups or scout groups that have laid cross in remembrance. So yeah, see you in a bit. Good morning. So we've just got here now to Brandhoek Military Cemetery. Oh, there's 3 military cemeteries here, to be completely factually correct. One of which is behind us, and that's number 3. 3 of them are all within a couple of 100 yards. Footage that I had for you yesterday was in all 3 of them, but due to my time constraints now, I'm just going to go and take you to the one with the headstone that I want to show you, due to some personal connections and because he's famous and you've probably heard of him yourselves. So, as you can see here, this cemetery, this is Brandhoek New Military Cemetery. It's down like a little alleyway from the street, and you'll find there's quite a lot of cemeteries that are like that. There'll be, little grass paths like this, or sometimes stone tracks running next to farmers' fields and stuff. Just a sort of bit of advice and respect. Stick to them. Them little tracks, them little green grass paths or whatever they are, they're there to be able to access the cemetery. A lot of these cemeteries, as you can see there behind me, that's a farmer's crop. So this particular one doesn't actually run directly, this particular path doesn't run directly next to a farmer's track, but some do. So if they do, just, definitely don't drive your car on them. And when you're walking, just stick to the little track that's like being left to access the cemetery, just out of respect for the farmers. Yeah, so that's just a little quick tip. As you can see, I'm gutted. So proudly wearing my RLC poppy badge, and I'm wearing my International Guild of Battlefield Guards badge. And this cemetery, or this headstone we've come to see, I'm gutted because there's a connection to me and there's a connection to Liverpool, and the connection to me is the Royal Army Medical Corps. So those who know me know that my early years, my first 8 years in the military, I was a combat medical technician in the Royal Army Medical Corps. And this headstone we're about to go and see is of one of the most, if not the most, well-known and famous officers within the Royal Army Medical Corps history. Some of you might have guessed, some of you may not have guessed, but let's see. So he's just over here. Right, okie dokie then. Here we are at the grave of Captain Noel Shavas, double Victoria Cross winner and a military cross winner, all of which was earned during the First World War, and unfortunately his second Victoria Cross was issued posthumously after he succumbed to his injuries that he received in gaining that second Victoria Cross. So, little bit about him. Why is he important to Liverpool? So, he wasn't actually a Scouser, but he was the son of the Bishop of Liverpool, so had a lot of connections to Liverpool, hence why you've got things like Shavas Park and Liverpool 1, all named after this guy. So, yeah, this gravestone, this headstone's a very, very popular place for people to visit. As you can see down here, people have left crosses and little mementos in remembrance to him. The last time I was here a couple of years ago, apart from yesterday obviously, there was a lot more than this, and it's obvious that, you know, the team at the Commonwealth War Graves, you know, keep it tidy, you know, they don't let it pile up too much because it just becomes untidy then. So yeah, Noel Shavas, he was killed or died on the 4th of August 1917, and you know, his citation at the bottom, his inscription at the bottom, I hope you can make that out on a camera: greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Well, absolutely, you know, and I would say all the casualties of war have laid their life down for their friends and their country, but nobody, in my opinion, sort of showed that value more than a soldier or an officer who can earn 3 medals of gallantry in one war. Absolutely incredible. So yeah, he lays here. Again, unfortunately, I can't stay here too long because of the time constraints I'm now under. As you can see behind me at the end of this cemetery, just here, is the Stone of Remembrance. And Brandhoek's one of the areas or cemeteries, all 3 cemeteries of one of those that sort of breaks the general rule of thumb, if you like. I know I've said in previous videos that you get a Stone of Remembrance if you have over 1,000 headstones. I believe all these sites, all 3 of them, just fall below that. As far as I'm aware, let me double check. Yeah, so I just double checked, but I was right. They all fall below the sort of 1,000 headstone threshold. but they still have a stone of remembrance. And sometimes this, for various different reasons, was, you know, whether it was the architect or the designer of the cemetery at the time decided, you know, one, that there was enough space to still be able to place one, or it could be a case of the thought that the site was a significant site to justify one. So this area would have been, and the reason why there's you know, 3 cemeteries all like within a couple of 100 feet of each other, one just being down the bottom of this road here, and then these 2 obviously opposite the road, where I'm just walking back to number 3 now, where my car's parked, was because there was dressing stations here, hence why Noel Chavas, as you know, a medical personnel, was, you know, coming to and from this area with the casualties that he was recovering from the front. So yeah, and it was quite well placed for that, because the reason why is you can't quite see it from here, but just over these crops here behind me is the main road that runs from Ypres to Popperinga. So, you know, in today's, you know, in today's world, it would have been the main supply route for, and you know, and that's what it was back then. So yeah, that's why it was strategically placed here. So that's just a little bit about Brandhoek. So we're now in the town of Popperinga, locally known to the British Tommies as Pops. So I just want to show you one of the best museums and pieces of history I've personally been to, here on the sort of Western Frontier, and it's here at Talbot House's Men's Club. It's not open at the moment, it doesn't open until I think 9 or 10 o'clock, but I'm at the side entrance, and this is where you would get into the museum. The museum's just inside, but I'm going to walk you around to the front entrance of the actual house itself. What this house was Popperinga was very popular with the British when they come back from the front lines, and they come here and get a bit of respite, a little bit of R&R. But it was found that they were coming into town, you know, enjoying themselves a little bit too much, having a little bit too much to drink, etc. So a man by the name of Tubby Clayton come up with a great idea, which was to introduce this everyman's club. So it didn't matter what rank you were, what, you know, what unit you were from. This is somewhere you could come and have your bit of respite, but also where they could be like, have an eye kept on them, if that makes sense, you know, make sure they actually were okay. So here is Talbot House, and as you can see, it's a massive house, and here you've got rooms. There's actually bedrooms now in which you can stay here. You know, you can pay like a hotel room, and that goes towards funding, you know, keeping this wonderful place open. But in the modern day, it would be a naffy, you know, where you could come, play games, different cards games or whatever. There's a chaplain here at the top of the house. There's a chapel. You could come and speak to the chaplain. There's lovely gardens at the back where they could chill. Just, you know, if you can imagine, you've just come back from the front line for your couple of days off for whatever reason, and you just need to relax, recuperate, charge your batteries, and this was designed to be able to do that. So yeah, I absolutely recommend you coming here. I'm not going in today because I haven't got the confidence to go into museums and start filming yet. and plus I haven't asked for permission. It's €12 to get in. It's 100% worth, for an adult that is, 100% worth every penny of it. And there's a little gift shop as well where you can buy some bits and pieces. So what I would recommend doing is, obviously you've been to see Noel Shavas, you've been over to see Joe Strudwick, and you've been to hear about the stories at Essex Farm and Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae and his poem, and then you've come here to Popperinga. By the time you've had a good look around the museum, you've took it in, you've spent a bit of time in the gift shop, especially if you bring kids. I know what my kids are like as soon as there's a gift shop. You're probably getting close to wanting to get some food and a drink. The good thing about obviously coming here to any town on the battlefields is the availability of bars, restaurants, toilet facilities. That is one of the biggest things to bear in mind, is a lot of these cemeteries and a lot of these sites don't have toilet facilities because they're a cemetery in the middle of a farmer's field in a lot of cases, for example. So try and plan your day where you have plenty of opportunity to refresh, use the toilet, and things like that. So yeah, this is a perfect place to do that. There's toilets in Tabor House, and obviously there's toilets in the bar area. So I'm just literally walking down to the town square now. Looks like it's market day because they're all trading and stuff. But this is a wonderful place to get some lunch. Some lovely buildings that you can have a look at. And there's also another place just the other side of town. Just to point a note while I'm walking, obviously if you park here it's pay and display. You get 30 minutes free, but obviously you're going to take a lot longer than that by the time you've done what you needed to do. But the machines are really, really simple. You've got an option to convert it to English, so you can have, here's one of the machines now. So when it's not market day, you can actually park in the square, and here's one of the machines here. Really, really simple to use, accepts card and can be converted into English. So as you can see here, loads and loads of bars. It's super early because obviously I've got time constraints, and them time constraints will become apparent later on this evening. Those of you that have followed other YouTubers doing these types of battlefield videos will probably know what I'm talking about. Those of you that have been here before will definitely know. But yeah, plenty of cafes and bars. And when I've been here with my dad in the past, we've enjoyed a couple of beers and some really good food in this square. Last time I was here I was on a coach trip, which was great because it meant I could enjoy a few beers in the afternoon. When you're on a self-drive trip like I am now, obviously the beers have to wait until the evening when you're parked up at your hotel, or in my situation, my campsite. So we're literally just the other side of the square. It's just a couple of minutes walk, and this is one of the most moving places I think you can visit. So let's go and have a look at the Shot at Dawn location. So the Shot at Dawn execution cells and execution area. So during the First World War, those soldiers who had what was known back then as shell shock, or who had committed what were deemed to be murder, desertion, failing to follow orders, would be subsequently arrested and executed. And that was done right here. So this is obviously being made to be a permanent feature. So like what I was saying at Essex Farm, the sandbags have been concreted in, etc, etc, just for the preservance of history. This would happen here. So you'd be locked up in your prison cell just here, which we'll go in and show you in a minute if it's open. As I say, it's early, so it might not be unlocked, but if it is, we'll go in and show you. And there'll be a 5-man firing squad, and that 5-man firing squad would stand pretty much here. And what they would do is they'd be given the order to fire, and simultaneously all 5 of them would pull the trigger in the direction of the person unfortunately being executed. What they didn't know is only one of them weapon systems had a live round of ammunition. So obviously all 5 weapon systems would fire at once, but only one would actually fire an actual round. The other ones would fire blanks. So then none of the firing squad knew which one of them had actually killed the executed soldier. So thankfully it's unlocked. I don't actually know if it gets locked. I'm not sure, but this is one of the death cells as they were known. And as you can see, these glass panels have been put over the walls, and that's just for preservation purposes, because if I bring the camera a little bit closer, you can see where those individuals that were locked up here have inscribed and, you know, wrote things on the walls that they just want to keep as best as they can. So you'd be locked up in here for murder, desertion, you know, and various other things. Cowardice was one of the main ones. And then when your time was called, you would be taken outside. There you go. So I hope you can read that. You'd be taken outside, and that would be your time. 346 executions were done by the British. And I'm glad to say that in 2006, those individuals who'd been executed were pardoned by the British government, you know, saying that they weren't cowards, etc. Because we now know, you know, anybody who's been in such a horrendous situation of war, you know, get things like what we now know as post-traumatic stress disorder. They called it shell shock, and the emotions of that, you know, is mental illness. So yeah, really good news that pardon happened, but still a pretty sombre place in my opinion, and pretty horrendous that 346 executions were conducted by the British here. So I'm back in the car, and that's now day 1 complete, if that makes sense. So we're now going to head towards day 2, which obviously we're on day 2, but due to the footage issues, I've just had to do some more stuff that was done yesterday. So if if you've done day one and you still find you've got more time and you know you've got round everything and you want to do more, then it's really easy to do. There's so much to see. There's so many places you can go, and you know, I just didn't want to cram everything into this like sort of beginner's video to the point where you feel like you're rushed. You know, I can rush a little bit round to get loads and loads of footage because I've seen most of these sites before. I know bits about them. For people who are coming on a tour, you want to have the time to really take it in. You know, lay wreaths and flowers and whatever it is that you want to do, you know, because it's your tour at the end of the day. But yeah, if you find that you know you've got spare time, you don't want to quite head back to your hotel to check in yet, you'd like to do something else, and obviously depending on the time of the year, you know, in the summer you can stay out a lot later because of, you know, the light and stuff. But there is other things to do. So even like around Poppering, there's cemeteries and stuff that you'll see photos of on the Instagram page that I've taken while I've been here, but I haven't included in this vlog because I just don't want to cram your day so jam-packed that you don't feel like you've got any time to sort of stop and take in where you're going. So yeah, and you know, if you're out and about on the battlefields on your own tour and you think I want to know a little bit more, Google Maps is great, TripAdvisor is great. Most of these sites are all on there. You know, you can just type in things on Google Maps and it'll show you things up. But you know, more than happy for you to give me a message on the Instagram page and just say, Simo, I'm in this area. I've done my day, but I've still got a bit of spare time. This is what I've visited, this is what I've seen. Is there anything else you can recommend, or anything else nearby that I can go and spend 10, 15, 20 minutes, however how long it is that you want to spend, and I will get back to you with something and try and give you something that is, you know, suitable within your time constraints that you set to me. So yeah, so I'm gonna head off now. Well, we have headed off. We're already out of Pops now, and make our way over to day number 2, or what will be day number 2 for you. Few bits about driving on the other side of the road again. I know I mentioned it when I was boarding the ferry. Just take your time. Like, I'm just going round the roundabout now. You have to look left, not right, because obviously you go round the roundabout to the right. One of the things to be careful of in Europe is cyclists. Okay, they have a hell of a lot of cyclists, and what you'll find is, even if you're at a set of traffic lights and it's a green light and you're turning right, the cyclists or the pedestrians will still be allowed to cross. The only time they're not is if you get the green filter arrow to say you can turn right. So just be aware of that. Same as on the roundabouts, you will have it where you'll enter the roundabout and you'll want to exit, and a cyclist will be coming across you. So just take your roundabouts really slowly, and make sure you're a bit more observant than what you probably would be in the UK, using your mirrors a little bit more. Another popular one that the local drivers like to do, as I was explaining before, you're on a lot of farm tracks and things like that, you know, where it's, you know, just about wide enough to get 2 cars past each other, and you'll be driving a lot slower than what the locals will, and that's absolutely fine, don't worry. but they will overtake you at times. When you're first getting used to it. Once you've been 3 or 4 times, you'll be driving at a more comfortable speed, so you won't have as much issues. But they will overtake you, so anytime you're needing to turn left, just make sure you check that mirror. I know, driving instructors watching this video will be saying, well, you should be doing that even in the UK, and yeah, you should. Obviously checking your right mirror before you turn right to make sure there's no motorbikes or overtaking cars. But it's really, really important that you do it over here, because they will overtake you, and especially the cyclists on these super fast lecky bikes, you won't even hear them coming. So yeah, just a few tips, but it's not as bad as you think. Your sat nav, your Google Maps, whatever it is that you're using, your Google Maps will automatically switch to kilometres. Some sat navs you have to do it manually, some sat navs will do it for you. But don't worry, you've got your stickers on your car to say that you're the UK driver. There's lots and lots of UK registered vehicles in these areas, because people come all the time to visit. So yeah, don't feel pressured that, I've got to speed up. One thing that does catch a lot of people out, and I say keep an eye on your sat nav, your Google Maps, for this, is the speed limits. So I was explaining, kilometres rather than miles per hour. But what they'll have is what we don't have in the UK, is the speed limit can change, and you don't necessarily have to have a sign to say it's changing. If you're coming through a village or a small town or anything with any sort of houses, even if you're on like a main, like I'm on like what you would class as an A road now, but because it runs through a little small village, the speed is 50 kilometers an hour, which is 30 mile an hour, or there or thereabouts, 30 miles an hour. And then once you pass through, what you'll see is there'll be a sign with the name of the village with like little picture of buildings. That means slow down to 50 kilometers an hour. And then when you get through it, the same sign will have a red line running through it. That means you're at the end of it. So just keep an eye on that. But yeah, your sat nav will adjust, so just keep your eye on your sat nav. And if you follow the speed limits on your sat nav, granted they're not always 100% accurate even in the UK, but you won't go far wrong. So yeah, just a few driving tips from me when you're driving around the place. Again, going back to when I was saying about like if you run out of time, like you've used your time up, or you've been to visit the stuff that you're going to visit and you've still got time spare, I should say, just have a drive round, because when you're driving round, these cemeteries are everywhere, these memorials are everywhere, and you'll find things that you didn't know existed. I still find things now I didn't know existed. So yeah, just and they're all well signposted with the little green Commonwealth War grave sign and the name of the cemetery, and it'll have an arrow on the sign which will tell you which direction to go in. So you don't even need to have put in a particular cemetery. You can just have a drive around, see a green Commonwealth War grave sign with a name of a cemetery, and go, if you go, yeah, fancy that, then. But again, just bear in mind what I said earlier today about the tracks and the farm tracks. Make sure you're parking sensibly. Make sure some of these tracks will take you down. These signs will take you down. These little tracks where you've got to walk. So just make sure you're parked sensibly, and if it's pay and display, you get yourself a ticket, etc. So you don't get a ticket off the authorities. Right, that's enough waffling from me. That's 10 minutes. I will see you when we get to the start of your day 2. So I was just speaking to a local volunteer there. He was just doing a survey as to why we're visiting, etc. You know. So Langemark German Cemetery, 44,000 German soldiers are buried here. Okay, and that's quite common for the Germans to place the majority of their dead in one sort of like local location. So their sites do tend to be larger than some of, as you've seen with the British, where they're quite scattered. Out of them 44,000, almost 25,000 are in this mass grave here. All right, so yeah, quite an extraordinary place. I'm getting absolutely soaking wet here, but that is nothing compared to what these German soldiers, our British soldiers, the French, any of the soldiers that fought in the First World War, the weather conditions they fought through, the mud, the rain, were absolutely horrendous. So we're absolutely not going to complain. We're going to crack on, get the footage we need, and pay our respects like we always do. So I'm just walking over to where there was a very, very famous Second World War photo taken. Just going to get a little bit of shelter for the camera, just so that my phone doesn't get absolutely soaking wet. Just going to go over to where a very, very famous Second World War photo was taken. Okay, from somebody from the Germans who fought in the First World War. Okay, and then did lead them in the Second World War. Of course, I'm talking about Adolf Hitler. Okay, so in the start of the Second World War, in and around this spot, there's a very, very famous photo of Adolf Hitler, and he used that as propaganda. Again, just going to get some shelter for the camera. So he used that as propaganda for the Second World War, to say, look of all our heroes that have died in the First World War for our motherland, for Germany. When he was here, sort of, paying his respects to those Germans that died during the First World War. So, yeah, it's very, very important that we continue to remember that all these German soldiers, and these German soldiers also, they suffered terribly, just like our own did. It's easy to forget sometimes and see them as the enemy. But they still had family, they still had loved ones, they still had a life ahead of them. Many of these people were, were very young men. We spoke about Valentine Joe Strudwick. Same sort of situation happened with the German forces. And many of them fighting in this area were actually really, in terms of like military sort of training, were like unequipped. We weren't very experienced soldiers, etc. So they were fighting against very experienced British Tommies and French soldiers who had been, a lot more, trained to a lot more of a higher standard, and were a lot more capable in terms of their ability to fight. So yeah, so just a quick 5-minute video here at Langemark. pay our respects to the German soldiers who lost their lives here. Definitely, no matter where you are, whether that's a World War One, World War Two, you know, any other war that you've sort of decided to study and to go along to and have a look at the battlefields of that place, always try and take a look at the sort of perspective of the enemy at the time. You know, of course, Germany is no longer an enemy of ours, it's an ally of ours, you know, part of NATO, and we work together. So yeah, just an important thing I thought I'd mention. Right, I'm going to head back to the car, get dry, and then move on to our next site. Welcome to Passchendaele, and welcome to the Canadian Memorial Passchendaele. Okay, this isn't a massive memorial, but it's a very important one. This represents the sacrifice faced by the Canadians in their quest to support the British Empire. So we'll take a quick look. No more than 5 or 10 minutes here. There's not loads to see or to read, but you know, it's nice to get a few photographs, have a quick look of how the landscape played out for the Canadians travelling in this area towards obviously the German front lines. So yeah, the Canadians were given a horrendous task here, a really, really tough one. Some say it was near impossible. And because of that, you know, they received 9 Victoria Crosses, the Canadian Corps, in this area. You know, that's more than they've ever received in any other battle of the history of Canada. So I'm just having a quick walk around of this memorial, and I'm just going to have a quick read of what it says. So here we are. The Canadian Corps in October to November 1917 advanced across this valley. Then a treacherous morass captured and held the Passchendaele Ridge. And down the bottom, as you walk around, it says, "Honour to Canadians who on the fields of Flanders and of France fought in the cause of the Allies with sacrifice and devotion." And absolutely they did, 100% they did. You know, the British, you know, High Command, you know, ordered the Canadians to do this, and you know, many of them say like they were given you know, an almost impossible task, but they managed to do it, and it's credit to them for that. I'm going to show you the Canada Gate now, walking towards actually in the direction of Passchendaele village itself. But before I do that, just look how we're in the valley, you know, and you can imagine obviously how it looks today and how peaceful it is. It absolutely wouldn't have been like that during the First World War. So as we walk back towards my car, you can see the church in the distance as it goes sort of back up the hill, and that church is in the village of Passchendaele. So that's the direction in which the Canadians would have obviously been travelling or marching or fighting, you know, in order to take the village and to take the ridge. Here is also, I'm going to go a bit closer, I've just got to go down the bank, is the Canadian Gate. And what the Canada Gate represents is the journey in which the Canadians took, what the Canadians took in terms of their journey from Canada to Belgium and France. So there's an identical one of these in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and that's actually just on this plot here, the last steps. So that represents obviously the men, all 350,000 of them, entering the getting onto the ships to head here to Belgium. And that gate represents them walking up or marching up to the village of Passchendaele. And we're going to just take a quick walk through that now. On the floor you can see the way it's been imprinted with people's footsteps. I believe that's part of the design, and I think that's really, really cool. Yeah, and there you go. Passchendaele is just up the hill, the village itself. So I've just came out of the visitor centre at Tyncott Cemetery. It's definitely worth a visit. I was going to record some footage in there, but there was quite a lot of people in there, so it just wouldn't have been right for me to be talking. That thing you can hear there is, you just call out the names of all the people who are commemorated here, and it's just on a loop, and it must take them absolutely forever to get through one loop. But that's the visitor centre inside. It's really, really good. Some really nice pieces of artefacts in there and things like that, and tells you the story of the building process of Tyncott Cemetery and the Battle of Passchendaele and a few different things. So you can get into the cemetery from two ways. I'm going to take you down to the way I think is the best way to visit it for the first time. So where we've just parked is just over these trees here, and there's an entrance just through there, at the back of the memorial to the missing. But I think for when it's your first visit, is the best thing to do is to park in the car park, walk up to the visitor centre, and then follow this path from the visitor centre down to the bottom. And I'll explain why when we get down there. So here we go. The reason why I think it's the best way to experience this cemetery is because you're walking up the hill and you're travelling in the direction of the British soldiers who fought here, the Australian soldiers who fought here, and all the other Commonwealth nations who fought here. I think you get a more of an experience, especially on your first visit, of just how vast this entire cemetery is. Row on row on row of headstones. Approximately 12,000 headstones here. And then there's the memorial to the missing at the back as well, which we will speak about in a moment. I want to talk about the concrete bunkers you can see in front of you. There's 3 of these, and I will explain a little bit about them. So there's this one here, basically one to the flank. So if you can imagine, the Germans were looking out in that direction because they had the high ground, and the Allied forces were having to move up the hill. So the Germans had a bunker on the left flank, a bunker on the right flank just where them trees are, and a bunker in the centre, which is where the Cross of Sacrifice is, and the Cross of Sacrifice is actually built around that bunker, which I think is actually really, really cool. But we'll walk to this one and we can just have a little chat about them. So you can see the damage to the front of the bunkers. This would have been from Allied shell fire, bombardments, etc. So it must have been pretty terrifying for the Germans that were inside. you know, but they had the advantage in terms of the ground. As you can see, exactly like what we do even now when we use concrete, it's reinforced with steel bars, and this makes it a little bit easier to understand. You know, real strong fortifications, which made it incredibly difficult for the Allied forces that were trying to attack here. So, Tynecott Cemetery. Where did it get its name from? Well, it actually got its name, believe it or not, from the soldiers from the northeast, because the bunkers and stuff reminded them of cottages back home, hence why the term Tynecott, northeast River Tyne, cottages back home, and that's where the name Tynecott Cemetery comes from. Just going to head up now towards the centre of the cemetery, which is where the cross of sacrifice in that third German bunker lies. And as we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about the men who actually took this area. So it was taken in October 1917, the 4th of October 1917, by the 3rd Australian Division and the New Zealand Division. It been attempted to be captured many times before, and without success. And it's pretty clear by the sheer volume of headstones that success was very difficult in this area. One thing that you will notice here as you walk down the centre from is this sort of hard standing to allow the grass to grow through. You can see how much wear it gets because the amount of people that walk through it. So the Commonwealth War Graves have put this in to, preserve the land in terms of stop it sinking and stuff. So yeah, 4th of October 1917. So at that time, that was the Battle of Passchendaele, or the third Battle of Ypres. And it was part of that battle where they eventually managed to capture this, what is now sacred land. So we're approaching the centre. It's not the actual centre of the cemetery, but I call it the centre. This is the centrepiece, if you like. And as you say, what I love about the way this was built and constructed is in the centre there, in between that wreath, you can still see the remains of that German bunker on the inside. And as I've just been explaining there, Tynecott Blockhouse, captured by the 3rd Australian Division on the 4th of October 1917. So, yeah, and then as you stand here and you look down the valley, into the valley, wow. You go around the corner and you think, oh, that's all the headstones. Oh no, absolutely not. There's still so many more. So many more. And these ones, I always come to these bundle of headstones every time I'm here. And it's because of the number of people on these headstones. Look at that. Eight soldiers of the Great War known unto God. 4 Australian soldiers of the Great War known unto God. And again, more soldiers listed, buried together. So we're now approaching the back of the cemetery. And this is where, as I was saying, this is where the car park is, just behind here. But this is also where the memorial to the missing is located. So let me explain a little bit about it. So the memorial to the missing on the Ypres salient, there's a memorial to the missing at the Menin Gate, which we'll be at tonight for the last post ceremony. But due to the sheer number of lost soldiers, all the names couldn't be fitted onto the Menin Gate. So 35,000 names are actually here on the memorial to the missing at Tynecott. And the panels just go all the way around. So you can see it just in front of me, and that's where we're heading. It actually celebrates its 100th anniversary next year, so from it being built. So next year will be a very, very special time to come and visit the Menin Gate, from when it was opened in 1927, obviously after the Great War. And like I said to you, at Ypres, up at the top there where the lion is, just below the lion, it reads, "To the armies of the British Empire who stood here from 1914 to 1918, and to those of their dead who have no known grave." Okay, so yeah. Inscription about it being a memorial of those with no known grave. We'll be here this evening at 2000 for the famous last post ceremony, which happens here every single night, with the exclusion of a couple of years during the Second World War, where it was actually done in the UK. So yeah, every single night it's conducted here. I definitely recommend coming to the last post ceremony. Is a must see, but I definitely recommend coming earlier to just have a look around and take in some of the sights and read some of the names that are listed on here, because during the ceremony itself you won't be able to. It'll be really busy, or it can get really busy. So yeah, as you can see here, people lay wreaths and crosses and everything else. It's a fascinating place. And when I said to you, so yeah, definitely give yourself the opportunity to come here and have a good look around. And you know, if you want to lay a wreath, etc., do that. It looks like there might be something else going on before that, because the road's closed here. So there may be another event going on. So I'm going to stick around. Here's just a little bit of information about the Menin Gate, how it was built, etc. The last time I was here was 2024, and it was covered with scaffolding. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission have just done a massive restoration project, and it's obviously now complete and the Menin Gate's open fully. So it's nice to see it in its full glory, because the last time I was here, it was still special, but it wasn't fully visible. So yeah, so as I say, 54,000 names listed on this memorial, and the cut-off for this memorial was obviously then the change over to the Tynecock Memorial to the missing. Absolutely stunning piece of architecture, and again, it's just another information board about the Menin Gate and its World Historical Heritage. So we've walked through the Menin Gate, and now we're heading into the centre of Ypres Square. Here just in front of me. So to my front is the Ypres Cloth Hall. There's a lot of famous photos. There's a lot of famous photos on the internet, etc., of this cloth hall being completely flattened during the First World War, and it was rebuilt to its former glory, to the exact standard it sits at today, and to the exact standard it was prior to the war. They obviously got some sort of stage built up at the moment because they'll have some sort of event going on. So not entirely sure what that is, but definitely going to have a little look and ask. And really nicely, that brings us to the Flanders Fields Museum. So as I was describing, it's right in the centre of town. The Menin Gate is just up the road there. You can't see it from here. But it brings you to the centre of town, and the museum is there underneath, as part of the Cloth Hall building. Definitely worth coming here to see that. Out the back of the Cloth Hall is also